Coming up on AVANT, Technology Insights with Ken Presti. We've got an overview into the recently released 612 report on UCaaS, a free market research report developed by AVANT Research and Analytics. We'll talk about the state of the unified communications as a service market in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, where the opportunities lie for leveraging UCaaS, and of course, we'll look at what's in the report itself. Welcome to AVANT Technology Insights. I'm your host, Ken Presti, Research Vice President of AVANT Research and Analytics. The link between solving business challenges and cutting-edge technologies has become tighter and more complex than ever before. In this podcast series from AVANT Research and Analytics, we help enterprise decision makers sort through the business case, the value, the challenges, and ultimately the bottom line of technology adoption. So listen to us at your desktop, take us in the car, tune in from the commuter train, or download us at the gate. You'll find us on Apple, Spotify, and Google, as well as at www.goavant.net/podcast. Hello and welcome to AVANT Technology Insights. I'm your host, Ken Presti. Today we've got a very special edition of the podcast. AVANT Research and Analytics has come out with its 612 report on unified communications as a service. It is a free market research report designed to help enterprise decision makers get a sense of UCaaS, understand the value proposition, the ups, the downs, all of that, all with the intention of helping them to make a decision on whether to make a go, no-go decision on that technology over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. So this report has just come out, and given that my hair was not sufficiently on fire in advance of that, we had a little bit of technical issues. So my interview with AVANT President Drew Leidecker didn't happen in time for our deadline. So what you're looking at right now is the Show Must Go On edition of the podcast. But that's okay. We've got a lot to work with here and some interesting things. So let me give you a quick look at what this report does. We've got broad market numbers from our friends out in the market research industry at large. We talk about why customers are looking at UCaaS, where they are in the evaluation process, allied services that customers are looking for. We look at UCaaS penetration by vertical, we look at UCaaS penetration by revenue band, and we look at growth rates by vertical. And we also look at the horizon for moving to UCaaS by vertical. In other words, how far out in the future are these companies planning to make these moves? And the reasons why companies delay when they do delay a move on UCaaS. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to make this a fairly quick one, I believe. But I want to, first of all, thank everyone both inside and outside of AVANT who played a key role in making this report happen. Couldn't have done it without you guys. Lots of quotes. You're going to be hearing a lot of podcasts coming out related to this. In fact, you've already seen some. Quick sneak preview while I'm thinking of it. The next 612 report will be on CCaaS. Contact center as a service. So it'll be allied with UCaaS, but also CCaaS is also something very different. So as you look at previous versions of the podcast, you're going to see a lot of UCaaS available to you already. Moving into the future, you're going to see a lot more CCaaS coming up, and of course, we're going to be covering things as they happen as well. So please stay tuned to the podcast over the long haul. We're glad to have everybody on board. So, okay, I am my own guest today. As some of you might know, I'm an ex-radio news guy. I did news talk radio back in the old days, so we're going to be kicking it old school today. So, still going to be a great podcast, and we're glad that you're here and listening. So, okay, basically, looking at UCaaS based on what we've learned in the 612 report, the consensus of the analyst community points to rapid growth in the UCaaS space. This encompasses all the major players. Everybody looks at UCaaS and say, yes, that's something that's coming up very, very hard and very fast and is posting some major numbers. It's approximately a $25 billion market right now by some estimates, ramping to $36 billion projected by 2026. So that's a pretty good hockey stick there. Now, when I look at Avant's own numbers, it posted an 86% spike in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me give you a little bit of G2 on how we built this stuff out. I guess it was about 18 months ago, I began talking to Avant Chief Strategy Officer Alex Daniluk, who said, we at Avant, we get a lot of data in our normal course of doing business. It would be nice if we could do something that would help not only the trusted advisors with whom we work, but also the enterprise decision makers. Ken, do you have any ideas? So to make a long story short, I ended up joining the company, and we began developing these 612 reports, which take a very comprehensive look at what's going on in a particular technology. This report is, I think it's like 29, 30 pages long, and chock full of information. I think this is our best one yet. It's got the most data of the 3 612 reports that are already out there, the first two being SD-WAN and IT security. So we put all this stuff out there. It is aimed primarily at the enterprise decision maker, as it should be, because that's where the rubber meets the road. And it is something that the trusted advisors can use as a tool to help the end customer better understand the opportunity around the technology. And because we take it from a market research perspective, it also has the pros and the cons. So what's in there that I need to think about as an enterprise decision maker who is interested in adopting this particular technology, or perhaps upgrading what I'm doing within that technology? Because as I think most of you know, a lot of people out there who may be looking at UCaaS probably have some UCaaS already in their systems. So we're trying to provide an opportunity for everybody to look at things from both a best practices perspective and also a data-driven perspective. So as I was saying, this is about a $25 billion market, moving to 36 by estimations in 2026. Huge hockey stick in about the March timeframe. Of course, anybody who's like breathing oxygen these days knows that coronavirus really reared its ugly head in about that time frame. People started shutting down their offices, at least temporarily, and people were working from home. So this was an opportunity for UCaaS to really make itself of service in that sort of an environment. So we saw a big hockey stick as that came to be, and it's still growing. It's still a very growth-oriented technology that does a lot of great things for people that are working from home. So what are people looking for when they're looking at UCaaS? There's a lot of different market drivers. One of them I just touched upon. We've got this whole COVID-19 coronavirus work from home thing going on. We've been talking about that at length, and basically everything that Avant has put out over the course of the last few months. None of you who are listening to this would be a stranger to that. Also, video is one of the key drivers. Now, one of the things I've noticed over the course of the last few months is that while video is nothing new within our business context, we've always had these platforms that had video. What's happening is that, in my experience anyway, we're seeing video being turned on at a level that did not used to happen. So people would have these meetings, you'd see the big black square with their name on it, but they didn't necessarily turn their cameras on. Now I think, given that we don't see each other the way we used to, video has become a lot more important than it ever was, and people really are turning their cameras on. So UCaaS ties into that. Collaboration piece is obvious, as UCaaS is a fundamental approach for people within your own company to be able to communicate, collaborate, and do all of those different things. And of course, we can take the mile high look and look at it from a digital transformation perspective. That has gotten to be a pretty big buzzword in the industry these days, but we have to look at the underpinning of what drives that, and UCaaS is certainly part and parcel of that. One of the things we found in the research phase of it, we do these pre-sale surveys in conjunction with our trusted advisor partners, and they're talking to the prospect. What is the situation in which they are most likely to be considering a move to UCaaS or a move towards an upgrade of their current UCaaS? And one of those things is the end of term for legacy contracts. That seems to be a natural time to look at what the options are, to talk to the trusted advisor and to see how the different technologies have evolved since the last time the enterprise decision maker made those kinds of choices. So I would advise everyone in the enterprise space to look at those contracts, be aware of their due dates, give yourself a good, at least a good 6 months to spend some time looking at it, to socialize it, to test things out. The time available is one of those things that, that is difficult for everyone. So you're going to want a good lead time in order to make that happen. Enhanced functionality is another key driver. Technologies tend to grow again and again and again, and become more full-featured. So just because you think you know a given technology based on what's been happening in the past doesn't mean that you know everything that has occurred since that time that you last took a deep dive into it. So this is a key opportunity to take a look at that when you see those sorts of contracts coming to term. It's all about enhancing your communications experience. So updating your company's capabilities obviously raises the ability of what your company itself can do. So this is a key driver in terms of why people are going to UCaaS. More than half of the sales prospects are still in the evaluation process, according to the surveys that we've been doing, meaning that trusted advisors are in a prime position to help, and enterprise decision makers aren't behind the 8 ball in terms of making those movements too late in the game. So you can still use UCaaS and you can still update UCaaS in a way that you are using technology as a differentiator, which of course is the key to basically everything that we do at AVANT, everything that our partners do on the product development side, everything that our trusted advisor partners do. There's a whole ecosystem here devoted and dedicated and spending a lot of time around how enterprise companies, and SMBs for that matter, can leverage technology as a means of a differentiator against their competition. One of the things I always enjoy looking at in any of these types of reports is which vertical markets are really adopting it. And this one was a tough one, I got to admit, because we look at the verticals here, and the general consensus is that this is applying to a wide range of verticals. Retail is in the midst of a major adoption campaign, as is construction and engineering. But when you look at the broad base, when you look at all of the verticals that we measure, and there was a lot of them, we're seeing pretty even acceptance among all of them. And in some of the, in a lot of cases, we're seeing penetration in the 60 and 70% range. So it's not too late to leverage it, as I was saying a moment ago, as a competitive differentiator, as a competitive advantage. The early mover phase of it is probably over, but that's okay. It's just a very strong technology that people are going to need to look at. So when you look at the horizon for moving to UCaaS by vertical, construction and engineering was taking the lead in planning the move within 6 months, with 82% of the respondents to the surveys saying they were going to move within 6 months. So lots going on there. Choices and challenges. Now, this is one of those things that, we like to see people adopt technology. We like to see people move ahead. But one of the things that you always have to look at, just in terms of being an honest broker, and when Avant hung out our shingle for research and analytics, my charter, our charter, was not so much to drive technology sales. It was to be a third party voice that people could leverage as a means of validating, as a means of better understanding, as a means of asking the right questions. And ultimately, if you do those things, when you do make your decision for or against, as the case may be, you can get the sense that you're making that decision with a higher level of understanding that you otherwise might have done. So, we like to talk about the challenges as well. So, your network infrastructure obviously needs to be solid. SD-WAN is something that, plays very heavy into that role. So, that may be something that you want to look at. There are other options available too, and you'll want to engage your trusted advisor to make sure that what you've got right now is sufficient to the need, in terms of bandwidth and low latency and things of that nature. And you're also going to want to talk about what you need to do in terms of any upgrades, especially if you are, like most of us these days, a very distributed enterprise. You've got people working from different offices to the extent that they're working in offices at all. But if they're not, that makes it even a little bit more challenging because you've got people working from home, typically on, consumer level broadband. So you're going to want to check those things out. To the extent that you're in different countries and different locations, you're going to want to make sure that you have proper proximity to the points of presence for the service provider, the POPs as most of us call them. Of course, you're going to want to look at cost and whether or not this is going to save you money. Truth of the matter is sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of it depends on what you are moving away from. But one thing that we learned along the way is that taxes and fees are among the things that factor significantly into your cost projections. So you're going to want to spend some time looking at that. So you're going to want to look at it in conjunction with your technology people. You're going to want to look at UCaaS in conjunction with your financial people. And you really want to look at it in conjunction with the needs of the users, because those are the people where the rubber meets the road. These are the people that are actually going to use it. You're probably going to want to do a full-on proof of concept and hopefully multiple proof of concepts to make sure that the choice you're making is in line with what your real needs are, because you need to have the proper integrations given whatever software platforms that you're using, and you're going to need interfaces that your people can understand and to build on it from there. You're going to want to look at reliability. You're going to want to look at ease of use. I know I'm sounding like a broken record on this one point, but you're going to want to engage your trusted advisor to help you make those decisions. So, when companies decide that they're interested in UCaaS, but they're going to delay, the reason more than half the time is a matter of bandwidth availability. And that is generally something that they intend to improve and then move to UCaaS. We don't see a whole lot of examples where they're saying, okay, I don't have bandwidth, so I'm not interested anymore. But it becomes the next phase of a larger project of upgrading that network capability. And of course, as I mentioned a moment ago, there's always concerns about complexity and end user acceptance. So that takes us full circle to the POC. You're going to want to do that. So, to sum it all up, key takeaways. We've got technical differentiators can be difficult for vendors to maintain. Now, this is kind of an interesting one because vendors are always talking about how their products and technologies are different from those of their competitors, and that makes perfect sense to do it that way. But one of the things that we learned that the end customer should be aware of is that the technical differentiators tend to be tough to maintain over the long haul, because once somebody develops something cool as you all know, everybody else is going to jump on that bus as soon as possible. So you have to look at those differentiators in that context, and to the extent that you can get a sense of how different options are being mapped into the process, that's an interesting discussion to have. It's also a difficult discussion to have because it's not something that most vendors are really all that eager to share in terms of product road mapping and things, and you have to assess what you hear on that. But I would say that that's one of the things to think about when you are choosing your specific solution. Proof of concept engagements will help you validate your decision, work with your trusted advisor, and do all those things that I've been saying through the course of this podcast. Now, the 612 report on UCaaS can be downloaded at www.goavant.net. That's GOAV as in victory, ANT.net/UCaaS, UCAAS -report. Again, like I said at the opening of the show, it is a free market research report. So there's no reason not to take a look at that. We will be talking about this report in various deliverables, but this will be your main venue for getting the full range of everything that's in that report. So what I would do is download it, read it, check out the other deliverables, the subsidiary deliverables that will be coming out around it. So we'll be doing blogs, we'll be doing more podcasts. There's already a lot of podcasts in the queue on UCaaS as a result of doing this report. Show it to your colleagues, show it to your customers. Use it as a means of social media outreach. We'd appreciate if you attributed it to us, but I know that a lot of companies out there tend to struggle a little bit with their social media messaging because everybody's running around with their hair on fire, especially in this day and age, and it's hard to come up with things sometimes. This is a great opportunity to leverage some content for social media. So, feel free to quote us, attribute it to us. We'd appreciate that. And show it to your customers. Give them the opportunity to read it. Talk about it with them. Ask them what they thought, not just in terms of getting feedback on the report itself, but you want to get to the point of what are the main questions that they have as a result of it? And I mean that not only to the trusted advisors who are sending it to you as the end customer, but also on the flip side, discuss it among yourselves in terms of what the key questions ought to be. So, once again, the AVANT 612 report on UCaaS can be downloaded effective immediately at www.goavant.net/UCaaS-report. Thank you for joining us for the monologue edition, the show must go on edition of the AVANT Technology Insights with Ken Presti podcast. We had a little bit of a technical glitch a couple of days ago, and we're unable to do the full-on interview as we usually do. But, hey, I was game for it. I wanted to give it a try, and thank you for getting this far. Have a great day. We will be back next week. Thank you. You've been listening to AVANT Technology Insights, featuring information and opinions on how key technologies can be leveraged to solve business problems. AVANT Technology Insights is a service of AVANT Communications, a platform for IT decision-making. All opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the guests and the host. For more information, please feel free to download our research reports and other resources at www.goavant.net. That's www.goav as in victory, ANT.net. For AVANT Research and Analytics, this is Ken Presti.